A little housekeeping. You might be wondering, why is Care Shabbat on Saturday, November 5th, when we just completed Breast Cancer Awareness Month? Care Shabbat was actually 2 weeks ago, and there were synagogues throughout the country that did participate. We had a good reason for doing it November 5th. 2 weeks ago, our speaker was in Israel. So we figured, let's wait till she gets back. So we did that. And the other one, mark your calendars, next year, Care Shabbat is the weekend of October 20th and 21st. So just so you know. In 2022, an estimated 287,500 women, 287,500 new cases of invasive breast cancer are expected to be diagnosed in women in the US, along with 51,400 cases of non-invasive breast cancer. About 13%, it's 1 in 8 of US women are going to develop invasive breast cancer in the course of their life. The percentage goes up if a woman has a mother, a sister, or a daughter who has been diagnosed with breast cancer. And yet 85% of breast cancers occur in women with no family history. The most significant risk factors for breast cancer are being a woman and getting older. To add a third, Ashkenazi women have an even higher risk of breast cancer because of a higher rate of BRCA mutations. Do I have your attention? Am I not just a ray of sunshine on a Saturday morning? I do want to mention one thing that I'm proud that Beaumont Hospital's Sharing and Caring organization has partnered with us. And a lot of the information you see on that table in the back is from them. They offer education and support for breast cancer. So with all those terrible numbers I gave you, there is good news, which may sound a little bit strange, and it's exactly why Care Shabbat was created. 65% of breast cancer cases are diagnosed at a localized stage with a 5-year survival rate of 99%. The mortality rate for breast cancer has decreased by 44% in the last 35 years. And the reason is singular: testing. The care in Care Shabbat stands for Congregations Advocating Regular Exams. So simply put, mammograms and screenings save lives. I can't put it any more simple than that. Our speaker, Lauren Willens, was 30 years old, newly married with a young son from a previous marriage, and on the last day of their honeymoon, when she learned she had a BRCA1 gene mutation. While not a cancer diagnosis, it meant it was almost a certainty that she would have cancer. And the only question was when. So on behalf of Care Shabbat and Congregation B'nai Moshe, I am honored and proud to welcome to the Bima, Lauren Willens.
Good Shabbos. Steve, thank you so much for all you're doing in the community and Care Shabbat. And I just think it's so amazing. And thank you all for letting me bring down the morning good news, but hopefully I shed some positive news and thoughts and ideas and things that we can protect our family. So thank you so much for giving me the time to speak with you all. Steve summarized my story really nicely. I was 18 when I lost my father to prostate cancer, which is generally not something we think of as being a life loss type of cancer. My father had a rare form of cancer it was a small cell prostate cancer that is known to, at the time, it was a near certain fatal diagnosis. 3 years later, my mother died of colon cancer. And my mother died of colon cancer when I was 18. My father, 3 years later, was diagnosed with small cell prostate cancer. And he fought very, very hard for 2 years. My mother, unfortunately, was diagnosed and she passed away the next day. So I obviously went into my young adulthood with a different view. And let me take a step back. I'm sorry for bouncing around, but my whole family are doctors. I am the black sheep of the family and became a patent attorney. So I have probably more invasive care in my life and goodness knows now when I sit down to dinner with my brothers and my husband, they're like inspecting my freckles. So I'm like an over healthcare person. But so when my parents passed from cancer was right around the time that Angelina Jolie had come out and was on the front covers of news magazines with, this radical at the time, care plan for herself. And as a young woman, I'll be honest with you, I thought to myself, that will never be me. I know I have an extraordinarily high rate of having, cancer, but there was no history of breast cancer in my family. And, I never thought of it. So I was previously married. I had a healthy, beautiful son. Thank God, after being divorced, I found the love of my life, my amazing husband, David, who's an internist at Henry Ford. And when we got married, he said, we're both Jews. You have a pretty nasty family history. We've got to do genetic testing. And I was really at that point in my life where I'm like, we finally have this like happily ever after. Why are we doing this to each other? But as a lawyer who's risk averse by nature and a doctor who was not going to let me procreate until we did this, I went to my genetic screening appointment. And they advised on a cancer panel, and we were really prepared for results that made me positive for the colon cancer marker because of my mom. Fast forward, last day of our honeymoon, we get this call that I'm BRCA1 positive. And what I say to people that's shocking, and I routinely, when I say this, the look on people's face is like, what? When I got my BRCA results, to me, that was the day of my diagnosis. It wasn't a matter of if, it was really a matter of when. And being 30 years old and newly married and the mother of already a beautiful 5-year-old son at the time, I was so shaken because my parents didn't have great luck. So to me, this was a major, major slap in the face. And I was fortunate to have really great care teams and geneticists. And we sat down and we really made a conscious decision that my risk elevation didn't rise until I was 35 and 40 for 2 respective issues, because BRCA deals with breast cancer as well as ovarian cancer, which I don't think is talked about as much. And so we made the conscious decision as a young growing family to say, you know what, let's have our kids, let's do IVF, which I'll talk about in a second. And when those issues are done, we'll deal with the prophylactic surgeries, because the surgeries are great now. And we rolled the dice. Didn't think we were rolling the dice that close to the time frame. But 3 years later, here I was with, or 2 years later, here I was with a stage 2B triple negative breast cancer diagnosis. So before we get there, though, I will talk to you about my IVF experience, because this is the part of my experience that I'm really passionate about. In Judaism, I've heard it multiple times today, just sitting and listening to your beautiful services, but we really preach the concept of Lador Vador and generation to generation. And I feel so passionate about and grateful that my husband and I made the choice to do IVF. And the reason we did IVF is not because I wasn't capable of getting pregnant, but because I refuse to perpetuate the genetic line that could hurt the Jewish people and my children, right? And 1 in 40 Ashkenazi Jewish women will have this BRCA mutation. And that rate is astonishing, especially in communities like ours, which the prevalence of, intelligence and intellect and connections to the medical and the healthcare communities and the federation operations and Hebrew Free Loan that will literally help and pay for IVF for people that can't do it. I'm so grateful to say that I was able to carry my own genetic daughter. We just genetically screened the embryo, and she is a beautiful, healthy, happy 3-year-old. So I'm so grateful for science and genetics, and I'll talk a little bit more about that after I talk about my cancer experience. But I'm so grateful. And the takeaway that I hope you're getting from this part of my story is, it's not just getting mammograms. It's not just getting pelvic ultrasounds. It's not just going to your doctors. It is not just women. As Jews, we have an obligation for Lador Vador to find out about our genetic makeup and to make decisions and healthcare choices for ourselves and our families that are based, not only on statistics, because that only takes you so far, but allows you to really learn and understand and know your body. So when I found out I was BRCA1, my brothers all got tested. I have 3 brothers, and one was negative, one was positive, we're not letting him get tested until he gets life insurance. So hopefully, the lawyer in me, right? So it really is a female and male problem, and I think that's something we often forget when it comes to the genetics piece. But my daughter was 15 months old and nursing when my doctor called me one Friday night before Shabbat and said, "I have to tell you something. You have breast cancer." And I laughed, and it was like one of those bizarre moments where it was like, "Why are you laughing?" And I'm like, "Because I knew it was going to happen. I'm kind of relieved that it's just done." And I had this belief that I would just have the surgeries and life would go on. Well, breast cancer treatments are great and people are surviving and thriving because of them. But that often means most times people are getting chemotherapy before surgery. So I did 20 rounds of chemotherapy, 20 rounds of an additional medicine that was not FDA approved at the time, but turned out to be FDA approved during my treatment, Keytruda, an amazing regime. And then I went through 3 surgeries to remove organs and reconstruct. And I will tell you, it wasn't fun, but I am so grateful to be able to be here now, a year later, completely healthy, completely cancer-free. I was able to work the whole time. I was able to be a meaningful part of my children and my family's life. And I feel grateful that so my 10-and-a-half-year-old, they're both students at Hillel, and I told my son, I'm coming to speak at a synagogue this morning. Do you want to come? And he goes, "No, I know your story." So I decided not to bore him. He said, "But I think it's really nice that you're doing this on Shabbat, especially since last Shabbat you woke up in Israel. It's really nice that you're doing this." And I said, Carter, it's not about being nice. It's about, we have to take care of one another. And I think this information, maybe it's a lot, and I'm happy to speak with any of you after today. But I hope the takeaway is that, for you, yourselves, your family, getting genetically tested, getting mammograms, getting pelvic ultrasounds, talking to your doctors, making informed healthcare decisions are really, really so important. And in the Metro Detroit Jewish community, we're so lucky. I happen to be on the board of this organization. It's a national organization, and we have a Metro Detroit chapter called JScreen. And if anyone is interested in genetic testing and their insurance doesn't cover it, regardless of religion, regardless of financial need, if you want to take part of these services, we provide them for $39. You can get a full cancer screening panel and a meeting with a geneticist. I know you guys are lucky enough to have a geneticist in your congregation, so perhaps he might have even more local connections for you. But I really implore you all to take advocacy for your health and to use information as a powerful tool rather than a fear. And I would be remiss to be up here and talking about women's health. On the eve of Israel's election, we have our own election and coming up on Tuesday, and women's health is women's rights. And I implore you all to remember that not only do we have an obligation to ourselves and our local communities and to breast cancer awareness, but we have to advocate and take care of women's rights. Otherwise, I'm not sure I would have been able to be up here and telling you that I have a healthy, BRCA-free daughter that I know will grow up without the fear of breast cancer. So thank you all for having me, and I really appreciate your time and attention. May you all be well. Have a wonderful week. Thank you.
And ask you to stay up so we can give them. At this point, I would like to honor and recognize everybody who has been affected by cancer. Some people have been affected by themselves having gone through cancer. Some people, because of loved ones, have gone through it. Some have survived, and some have not. But at this point, what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask those who have been affected by cancer to either, if you feel comfortable, come up to the bima, or stay in your seat if that is more comfortable for you. I know some people feel that, the need to stay in distance, but I'd like to offer a blessing for all of us who have been affected by cancer. And so I'd invite you to come up or rise in your seat, either way.
Thank God it's not the whole congregation.
Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu, God and God of our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. You are known as Rofei Kol Basar U'Mafli La'asot, the healer of flesh and creator of wonders. We stand here before you today as individuals and as a community. Cancer survivors and support teams, family members and friends, and a growing community of people who have lived through the indescribable battle in our own bodies and the bodies of those we love, each with our own burden to bear. Yet we stand here before you today acknowledging that in this world there is often no relief or explanation. Try as we might to take a deep breath, to feel healthy and whole, we sometimes find ourselves struggling in a darkness too dense to escape. Many of us live in a world of what next or what if. We go from scan to scan, counting the days and then the months and then the years, if fortunate, since diagnosis. We have a language of words that we cannot say: recurrence, lumps, bumps, abnormalities, obstructions. We touch with trepidation, feeling for lumps or bumps, noticing every abnormality, planning our next call to the doctor. We are scared, yet eternally grateful for the gift of life you've given us. Nevertheless, we recognize that each of us have gone from warrior to warrior through surgeries, chemotherapy, radiation, and back again to warrior. Lord, help us understand that we can't always keep people alive no matter how hard we love them. Love can't stop a tumor from growing. But our love can make people's lives infinitely better while on this earth together, regardless of the time we share. Just as you sent angels to bring healing and comfort to Abraham in his recovery and Sarah and her emotional pain of infertility and distress, allow us, all of us here, to be present with genuine love for each person and their families through their diagnoses, their treatments, their recovery, or their passing. May we be a conduit for your love and a comfort to all who need it, wherever we may find ourselves along our journeys as we journey together as a community. And let us say, Amen. Amen.